You've entered Tending the In-Between, a space for those who remember there's more than one layer to reality. I'm Connie Anderson, voice, frequency, and mirror. Here we walk the edges of the seen and unseen, decoding the signals that pulse beneath form. Each transmission is an invitation to remember, to feel what the mind forgot, and to stand inside truth without apology. Breathe. Listen. This is where remembrance begins. Some of us don't move through the world as visitors. We move through it as if we've been here before. Not in memory, but in the quiet way the land seems to recognize us before we recognize ourselves. A grid carrier is someone whose presence touches the earth the way old water touches stone, soft, steady, reshaping without effort. They don't force the world to shift. The world shifts because they are here. People feel different around them. Places feel clearer. Truth rises without warning. Even silence becomes a kind of communication. This isn't mystical. It's ancient. It's the old partnership between body and land, one that has existed longer than names, longer than borders, longer than any single lifetime. The earth remembers certain people, and those people feel it, deep in the bones, deep in the breath, deep in the places they cannot explain. Not every grid carrier moves the same way. Each one carries a different rhythm, a different memory, a different function that reveals itself over time. 1. The landholders. These are the ones the earth leans into. Their presence settles a place. When they arrive, the land exhales, quietly, naturally, as if greeting an old companion. 2. The corridor keys. Bridges between worlds. They carry 2 or more lands in their field, feeling connected to places they may barely know in this lifetime. Distance doesn't weaken the bond. Time doesn't dilute the memory. 3. The signal bearers. Their voice, their writing, their presence moves through people the way wind moves through tall grass. They awaken memory without instruction and stir truth without trying to teach it. 4. The body keys. Embodiment workers. Their nervous system is an altar. They transmute what others can't carry and bring safety simply by being. 5. The dreamwalkers. Keepers of unseen pathways. Their work happens in dream, intuition, déjà vu, across timelines that feel familiar and foreign at once. Memory moves through them like tidewater returning home. Most carriers are a blend, which is exactly how the earth designed it. The earth remembers certain people, and those people feel it, deep in the bones, deep in the breath, deep in the places they cannot explain. Morocco didn't meet me with noise or spectacle. It met me the way an old memory rises, quietly, steadily, with a familiarity I felt more than understood. My first trip was in September of 2020, right in the heart of the pandemic. when the world had gone still and travel felt almost mythical. Borders were uncertain, airports half asleep, and yet the path in front of me opened without resistance, as if something older than circumstance had already cleared the way. The airports were dim and echoing, hushed in a way I had never seen before. Time felt thick there, not frozen, just paused, as though the entire world was holding its breath. I slept in the Paris airport 3 different times, curled into the soft hum of empty terminals. And instead of fear, I felt a strange reassurance, a sense that I was exactly where I needed to be, almost as though some quiet guidance was at my back, reminding me to trust the movement. On one of those flights, I sat alone in the entire economy cabin. Just me, the low drone of the engines, and the undeniable feeling that something ancient was shaping the steps beneath my feet. It didn't feel bold or rebellious. It felt natural, rightful, like answering a call I had felt long before I recognized it. I traveled from Oujda to Casablanca, through the mountains and the warm pulse of Marrakesh, and into the quieter pathways of cities built on memory. I walked the Medinas not as a visitor, but as someone whose presence felt known, as if the stones themselves had seen me before. The colors, the carved doors, the blue shadows beneath ancient arches, none of it felt foreign. It felt like something in me was remembering. But the place that reached the deepest, the one that met me in a way I still struggle to name, was Chefchaouen, the blue pearl. Its blues weren't painted. They felt breathed. The whole city moved like an echo of something ancient and gentle, a place where memory and matter blended in a way my body recognized instantly. In Chefchaouen, I wasn't just walking a city. I was walking a part of myself. Chefchaouen didn't just appear before me. It unfolded, softly, like stepping through a veil into a world made of sky and memory. The city holds a gentleness that doesn't demand attention. It asks for presence. Walls washed in indigo, stairways brushed with turquoise, doorways shaped like quiet thresholds into other lifetimes. My time there felt ancient, not nostalgic, not mystical for the sake of mysticism. Ancient in the way the soul recognizes what the mind cannot explain. There, in those blue-lit alleys, my body exhaled in a way it hadn't in years, maybe lifetimes. Something inside me unlocked, not through revelation, but through recognition. A soft remembering that rose from the bones outward. Chefchaouen didn't activate me. It mirrored me. It reflected an inner frequency I had carried for lifetimes, a frequency that finally had a landscape that matched it. And Danny felt it too. Standing beside me, he touched the same softness, the same remembering, as if the city had opened a shared memory we had both been carrying separately. Chefchaouen wasn't just a place on a map. It was a living corridor, a convergence point where people encoded with memory feel themselves return to something ancient and true. A point on the earth where the soul says, "Yes, Here. This is where I remember who I have been. The earth remembers certain people, and those people feel it. Deep in the bones, deep in the breath, deep in the places they cannot explain. I didn't leave Morocco empty-handed. I brought home Berber jewelry, silver pieces shaped by hands carrying thousands of years of land memory, symbols etched with lineage, patterns holding mountains, deserts, women's wisdom, and the quiet protection of old tribes. They don't feel like souvenirs. They feel like speaking objects, memory metal, land codes, portable nodes of a corridor that did not end when I boarded the plane home. When I hold them, I can feel the places they came from, the rhythm of markets, the hush of mountains, the breath of desert nights. They are anchors, quiet reminders that the land I walked now lives in my field. Proof that the corridor didn't close. It traveled home with me. If Morocco was the corridor, Chefchaouen was the remembering. The blue pearl doesn't shout its beauty. It offers it gently, in shades of sky and water painted across stone. My time there felt ancient, not because the city is old, but because something in me was older still. The alleys felt familiar. The air felt soft. The walls felt like they knew me. It was the kind of peace that rises from recognition, when the land beneath your feet matches something quiet inside your chest. Chefchaouen didn't activate me, it mirrored me. It reflected a version of myself I hadn't touched in a very long time. A version that woke the moment I arrived. I've never moved through the world as one thing. My energy has always carried layers, currents that open in different ways depending on the land beneath my feet. The strongest thread in me has always been the corridor key. Paths that feel closed to others tend to open when I approach them. Movement appears where there shouldn't be any. Travel shifts and aligns in ways I can't explain, as if something ancient recognizes the field I carry and clears the way before I arrive. Another part of me works like a signal bearer, a quiet transmission that stirs memory in certain places and in certain people. It isn't something I try to do, it simply rises on its own, the way a tuning fork answers a distant note. Sometimes I feel the land wake up under me, as though a forgotten frequency just remembered its shape. And then there is the thread that moves through the inner world, the dreamwalker in me. I've walked landscapes in dream long before I stood on them in waking life. I've recognized cities I'd never seen, felt the pull of places long before I understood why. The unseen has always been part of my map, quietly guiding me toward what the body would later step into. Together, these currents form my grid signature: corridor, signal, and dream. A pattern that doesn't announce itself, but reveals itself in the right places. It's why Morocco felt like recognition instead of discovery, why the Medinas felt familiar, why Chefchaouen felt like an echo answering itself. The land wasn't greeting me, it was remembering me. When a corridor opens inside you, the world begins to shift around you. Travel becomes heavier, slower, more complicated. Not because you are being held back, but because you no longer need to chase what you already carry. Activation pulls itself inward. It asks you to sit with what you've received, Let it settle. Let it change the shape of your life from the inside. You don't need to stand on every piece of land to keep the line open. Once a place has recognized you, once you've walked its memory, once it has marked your field, distance no longer separates you. You carry the land now. There are people reading this who feel something rise in their chest. A pull, a warmth, a quiet recognition they can't explain. This is for them. If you've ever stepped into a place and felt yourself settle without knowing why, if you've ever cried in a land your mind had no reason to love, if you've ever felt older than your age or guided by something you couldn't name, you are not imagining it. You are wired into the earth. Landholder, corridor key, signal bearer, body key, dreamwalker, or something in between. You don't need permission to feel what you feel. You need recognition. Because when grid carriers recognize themselves, the earth shifts in response, softly, steadily, as if exhaling, there you are. There are places we visit and places that change the shape of who we are. Morocco was the latter. Chefchaouen doesn't call loudly. It remembers quietly. It meets those who carry memory in their field with a softness that feels older than time, a recognition rather than a greeting. When a place remembers you, you don't leave it behind. You carry it. You live with it. You become it. The land you walked begins to live inside you, moving through your days like a quiet current. The corridor you opened continues to breathe beneath everything you do, and the blue pearl settles into your memory like a soft, steady pulse, not fading, but becoming part of you. You don't need to cross oceans to stay connected. Once the land has remembered you, distance no longer exists in the same way. The activation is already within you, moving, unfolding, guiding. And the remembering that rosing you there, in the blue-lit stillness of that ancient city, will lead you through the thresholds ahead, gently, quietly, with the patient wisdom of something that has known you for a very, very long time. You've been listening to Tending the In-Between. If this message resonated, you'll find more transmissions, writings, and Earth Pulse updates at tendingtheinbetween.substack.com. Subscribe, listen, and walk with us as we remember what's real. Thank you for being here, for tending the space between illusion and truth.